All right, all right. Welcome to Game Changers. My name is Sergio Tigera. We're on live here from Miami, Florida. Game Changers Live, where we interview and speak with some of the greatest minds in the world, some of the most accomplished people who have been real game changers in their industry. We hear it here every week live on Tuesdays. And we have a really special guest on today, and he's actually down here in Miami. It would be great to have him here in the studio, but because of COVID, we want to make sure that that we're careful. So it's guest today is Peter Taunton, and he's the founder and chairman of the board at Lift Brands, and he is a pioneer in the fitness industry. So in 2003, he had a vision for a company named Snap Fitness, and which was to create an affordable 24/7 kind of results-driven gym, differentiated from the impersonal kind of big box experiences. And today there's over 2,500 locations of Snap Fitness in 26 countries, which is insane, right? And so amazing accomplishment. But he didn't stop there, right? You think that he'd be retired right now and just chilling, doing nothing. But in recent years, he's acquired and founded several other brands to really round out that whole consumer fitness experience, including 9 Round, Farrell's, YogaFit, STEELE Fitness, and Fitness on Demand. So together with Snap Fitness brand, they have over 6,000 locations across the entire world, making them one of the largest wellness franchise organizations out there, serving 165 million workouts and counting. And so Peter is very enthusiastic, and one of his main teachings is that success is 10% what happens to you and 90% about how you react to it, which is very true. I mean, especially today. And then finally, Peter's accomplishments have been well recognized by the business community in general at large. In 2010, he was named the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year, and his companies are regularly featured on, Entrepreneur 500, Inc. 5000, and more. And that one word that comes down to, to describing Peter is really passion. He has it, he teaches it, and the results speak for themselves. So welcome, Peter. Thanks for being on, buddy.
Wow, Sergio, thanks for that warm introduction. I appreciate it. How are you?
You got it. How's it going over there? Good?
It's going great. You know what? I just settled back into Miami. I spent the last 3 months at my lake home in Minnesota. So I am day 2 into the next 9 months here in Miami. And I'm loving it. It's kind of windy though, right?
Yeah. So that's fantastic, man. You spend a lot of your time out there, at least in the summer times. Then you call Miami home. So
yes.
It's good to have you here. So, let's get into this. So you've bootstrapped a company that you started off with, one location up to 6,000 locations, which just sounds insane, right? I mean, that's like Subway level, McDonald's level for fitness franchises. Tell me a little bit about how how did that get started?
I had an opportunity. So when I was just a kid, I had an opportunity. I used to play a lot of racquetball. I eventually played professional racquetball for about 12 years, but spending so much time in a club, I was a court rat. So I knew what a good club looked and felt like, especially when I was traveling around the country, playing in all these amazing facilities. The facility that I played at every day, though, was a struggling club. And one day I was having breakfast with the owners, and I said, hey, guys, if you're never going to turn this club around with the leadership that you have in there. You need to get different leadership. And I explained a few different things that I would have done differently. Now, at that point, after I finished breakfast, I moved to Orlando, Florida. So, but as I was walking to my car, I literally said to the guys, hey, look, if you ever want to turn this business around, give me a call. Well, about a year and a half later, my phone rang. It was those guys. That was my first opportunity. That was my first big break. And I stepped into a club that was losing $200,000 a year. And they said, hey, Peter, here's the deal. We'll pay you $16,000 a year. But if you can turn this thing around, we'll let you buy us out with the profits. Because these owners, they were completely spent. They were over. I mean, they were tired of feeding this thing every year. And so you know what? A lot of people looked at me and said, man, you got to be crazy leaving Orlando to come back to Minnesota and take over a club making $16,000 a year on a business that's losing 200. They didn't see the upside. But that's really the lesson. Some people would look at that as, why would you do it? You're out of your mind. And other people look at it and saying, That's my opportunity. That's my chance. And I think when you get that, sometimes when you get that chance, when you get that window, you gotta move towards it.
So how old were you when this happened?
22.
22 years old.
Yeah, 22. And
you were able to spot that opportunity. In other words, you saw the vision of what this could be.
Well, as a kid, I had the privilege of watching my father work at a grocery store in my small little hometown. So my dad was the type of his management style was, there was no job that he put himself above. In his little grocery store, you would see him at the checkout stand, you would see him stocking shelves, carrying out groceries. He didn't put himself above any job. Yeah. And what that did for him, I've never seen an employee base as loyal as his employee base. I mean, these people would just walk on fire for him because they knew that he was in their corner. They knew that he was on the team, right? And so for me, having witnessed that, I knew that it was going to be hard work. I knew that, but what was my downside? I didn't have to come into the business with any capital. I just had to come in with a big heart and an innovative mind, and that's what I was. I mean, it's really funny with these guys. I asked them, what's my marketing budget? I mean, they looked at me, Sergio, and they said, Peter, maybe you didn't hear us. This business loses $200,000 a year. So we don't have any marketing budget. There's no cash. There's nothing. So you had to get innovative. And I did one of my first innovative moves was bartering. I bartered for carpet, for paint, for electrical work, because I needed to give the club a facelift. I needed to give people a reason to come into this club. And it you know what, it paid off over the next 5-6 years. I was able to turn that business around. And within 10 years, I owned that facility. And when you start with nothing, you're fearless. And for me, as soon as I got that note paid off, about halfway paid off, I went right back to the bank and I got a loan to open another club. So now I had 2 clubs paying off 1 loan. And I did that 7 times. And I stayed within that position, that job or that opportunity. I stayed there for 20 years, Sergio. 20 years, I did it. And then I sold all those clubs. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew that I'd been doing that for 20 some odd years. I wanted to try something different. And thank God I fell right back into the fitness space because that's where I had become an expert. And when I sold my clubs, one of my former employees, who I loved dearly, he had been with me for about 10 years. He didn't like the new dynamic of the leadership within the club after I left, which is not uncommon. Many times when a founder leaves a company, that culture leaves and it feels different. Not that that's wrong. It just feels different. And he just asked if I would consider building him a club. And I didn't want to build one of these big full service clubs. I wanted to, because I just cashed out. I didn't want to throw my money back at more clubs. And so I ended up just kind of thinking about, I remember I said, swimming pools, do I need it or not? Pulled out the swimming pool. I pulled out the racquetball courts. I pulled out the aerobic studio. I pulled out childcare. Before I knew it, this club was, instead of it being 40,000 feet, it was 4. Instead of having 50 employees, it had 2. And what was amazing is the unit level economics worked. Now, I didn't know that was going to be Snap Fitness at the time. I just knew that in the first 90 days, I sold enough memberships to cash flow it for the year. In the first 90 days. I also knew that it cost me literally 1/10 of the price to get a club open. So it was so affordable to get into business, and I didn't know it was going to perform at the level it did. And it wasn't until I built my 3rd club, all 3 of them being in different size markets. It wasn't until I opened that 3rd club that I knew I really had a tiger by the tail.
And see, and that's an amazing, and there's a lot of lessons there. As an entrepreneur, when you become an entrepreneur, right, you don't realize, I guess, you hear it from everybody, right? But you don't realize what you don't know until you get into it and you start feeling your way through it and you hit your head and you bump yourself and you try new things and you think you're on the right path. And, it takes a lot of resilience, right? It takes a lot of, guts as well, especially if the money's not coming in, to stick with that vision and say, I'm going to make this work. I know I can make it work.
here's the reality of it. I mean, winning in business, it's a team sport. Make no mistake about it. So you need to have good people around you, especially if you have aspirations to expand. And obviously, there's a lot of sacrifice. There's a lot of road rash and carnage on the way to becoming successful. And I'd say one of the biggest things for any of your aspiring entrepreneurs out there is don't be afraid to fail. Do not have fear of failure. And that's what keeps people out of the game for the most part. I do a lot of consulting today, and it is so hard for people to make that jump. And I ask them, what are you waiting for? It's just that fear of failing. And I tell them, hey, look, is it fear of losing all your money? Let's try to understand what that fear is. Let's try to isolate it. And a lot of it is they think that they have to lose it all. And I tell them, look, you don't have to lose it all. If you don't bet it all, you won't lose it all. Okay? Don't put yourself in a position where you're betting the farm, especially if the farm is your life savings and your family's livelihood. Look, don't do that. But there's other ways that you can get into business that are within your means. And then as that business starts to cash flow, you can double down. It's a hell of a lot easier to double down on a business when you're cash flowing.
Right.
But when you're starting from zero, those are gut wrenching moments.
That's right. Yeah, it's like come to Jesus. Yeah.
Right? It's not. It's not for everyone.
Yeah. It really calls into question your courage. Do you really believe in this? Do you really believe in your idea enough to bet? You say, not bet the farm, but still you're betting a big portion of, it could be a couple years that you may fall behind. But hey, you gotta start off, right?
Yeah, and you know what, Sergio? A lot of people they leave a job where they're making a decent income because they think they want to be an entrepreneur. And I'm not trying to talk anyone out of being an entrepreneur, but there's many times that I've talked people into saying, look, I would try to grow within your occupation. I was just talking to an anesthesiologist about a month ago. Hated his job, but it affords him an unbelievable lifestyle. And he says he felt like he's hit a ceiling on his revenue generating. But I had to lay it out for him. I said, look, understand, you're probably living in the top, 25%, top 1/4 of a percent of the lifestyle of people in this country. I mean, making the kind of money that you are, just understand where you are today. There's not a lot of room above you. Now let's talk about your real issue, which was you say that you feel like there's no more opportunity. Go back to your bosses and tell them that, look, you're in one hospital. Tell them you'd like to be a regional director or something. Tell them you want to help mentor other anesthesiologists. See if there's some opportunities within there to grow within their organization, being that they own more than one hospital. And that's what he's done. But he's called me back and about 3 weeks later, and he said, hey, look, Peter, best advice you ever gave me. Because it wasn't as bad as he thought it was. And leaving that job and then trying to come back into it, it's going to be a different game coming back. Especially now with COVID. Can you imagine? I mean,
correct. And COVID, I'm calling it like the great equalizer, right? Because a lot of people who have had great careers, right, but just kind of fell into their career and had just been going with the flow and had a good life and so forth, but it gets to a point where it's just not fulfilling. And so now, it is the time where, hey, look, this is going to be like, we're going to look back at this like the internet, right? It was a seismic shift in how things were done, how business is carried out. And, if you're about to make that leap, maybe, it's not the right timing for that, but in a way it is, because no one's going to blame you for having started a new company during COVID when there's so much unemployment, so much, disarray. So, why not take that chance and take that leap and go after something that you're actually passionate about?
Yeah, it's tough. I think 2020, you're going to see a big asterisk by a lot of corporations. I know my company, even though I'm not the active CEO anymore of my company, but it's a different game. You know what? Our EBITDA is probably cut in half this year, and it vanished, and there's no recouping it, because you can't. For us, we had over 6,000 locations that were closed or licenses that weren't being charged just because of COVID. Now they're all back up, but business is not back to normal for them. It's a different world, and you have to be, you have to have compassion for those business owners that, and try to give them a little breathing room to help them fight their way out of it. Otherwise, the alternative is they can't make it, and they throw you the keys. So you got to be try to be accommodating and as compassionate as possible.
So have you always been brilliant? Grit, tenacity, resilience, your ability to bounce back from adversity, overcoming obstacles. Is that something that was inherent to you just as a personality trait, or something that you picked up over time with the business?
I saw, well, having seen my father, I knew what hard work looked like. My dad put me to work when I was 8 years old. So I knew what an honest day's work looked like. I also knew how to lead people and make them follow you because they wanted to. So that sense of loyalty, and you can't build beyond that. The other part of it is, when I was starting, there was no plan B. So was I tenacious, and did I have grit? Absolutely, because I had no place to turn. I mean, I was not some little trust fund baby. I was the youngest of 7 kids with an identical twin brother, youngest of 7. So there was no plan B. All right. So when I had my opportunity, I seized it. And then when I started to get some momentum, then I really doubled down. As soon as I got the community was willing to barter with me, it was a game changer, because things got real in a hurry for me, which is great.
Yeah. One of the biggest ways of overcoming fear, like you said, that fear of losing or losing out, or losing money and so forth, is just taking action, right? Because a lot of times we tend to just block ourselves, and we're waiting for all the lights to turn green before we start taking that first step. But one of the biggest ways to overcome it is just taking action, right?
You got to move. You got to move,
right?
Yeah, it's amazing how some people just get stuck. They get stuck in their work, and they get stuck in life. And I just tell them, hey, look, we break it down. Really, we try to break their life down as easy as possible. Make it least complicated as possible. And then from there, come up with a plan on how do we press forward? How do we change what we're doing? Because it goes so far beyond changing your job. I mean, sometimes you just got to reset yourself. And how do you want to roll? How do you want to show up every day? And because there's a lot of people, they're tired of who they become.
That's right.
And I tell them, look, if you don't like who you are, then you got to change. Let's identify what you don't like. Just make a conscious effort not to do that anymore. And I don't care if you got to put Post-it notes on your refrigerator and little reminder. I don't care what you got to do to not be that person, but you can change your life as a husband, as a father, as a friend. You can change your life, but it's going to require action, and it's going to require an actual thought process. You got to own it, right? And a lot of people, they don't get that. It doesn't just magically happen. You got to get up and be really intentional about what it is you want to change.
I spoke to Tom Ziegler, so Zig Ziglar's son, the famous sales guy, right? And we were talking, and he was telling me about a time that he was speaking at a conference, and he's in Australia, and a guy from the audience asked him, "Hey, what's the quickest path to success?" And he says, "Replace bad habits with good habits." And it's very simple, right? What are the things that you do every day? And habits are made with little changes repeated daily, right? If we try to bite off too much, it's just not going to work. Make small steps every day to start moving you towards a new habit that serves you well. What are the things that you do that serve you well every day, that keep you going and keep you out of the hole?
For sure. I think, and it's balance. It's balance in your life, and believe it or not. And I didn't have a lot of balance in my life early on because I worked my ass off, right? Because I was so driven and motivated. But today it's balance. So I start my day out. I eat really well, okay? Because especially as we age, that all becomes less forgiving. I try to get my workout in. I try to do it in the morning because the longer I procrastinate on it, the least chance there is of me actually getting to it.
That's right.
Because things get in the way. I start my day with a to-do list, and whatever I don't get done today, it gets carried forward till tomorrow. If I see 2 or 3 things that keep getting pushed and pushed and pushed, then I take a serious look at it and say, is this really something that I need to do, need to worry about? Because I'm the kind of guy that I love knocking things off of my to-do list, right? I have a to-do list today and I've got 4 or 5 things left to do. So, and then I try to do my work-related things. So whether it's doing podcasts or following up on calls, I'm doing some stuff with Forbes right now. And so I always try to work a little bit. I try to work on the spiritual side of me, and then the personal side of me as well.
How big of a role does gratitude does that play in your life, in your daily life? Do you do that?
Yeah, of course.
Kind of reflect on that every day, or
yeah, multiple times a day. I'm a spiritual guy. I'm a Christian, and I do. I mean, how does a guy? I mean, for me, honestly, Sergio, I started in a 2-room schoolhouse. Okay, 2-room schoolhouse with my twin brother and my next oldest brother in the same classroom, and across the hall was my other brother and 3 sisters. Okay, 2-room schoolhouse. That's where I started. I mean, how does a guy go from that to right now we're having a conversation in my penthouse here in Miami. I left a $10 million lake house in Minnesota, jets, yachts, Ferraris, Aston Martins. How does that happen? So if you can't wake up, Sergio, with unbelievable gratitude, and I'm at a place now, I mean, honestly, about 4 or 5 years ago when I stepped down, I stepped down as a CEO about 1.5 years ago, but I really started to reflect on who I was. I had pulled, damn near 100 million out of my company, and I didn't like who I was, to be honest with you. I just said, man, how much is enough for you? How much, shit are you going to buy? How much?
It's true.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I just said, stop it. You need to stop it right now and start focusing on what does your legacy look like? How do you want to show up? How are you going to change the lives of people? How are you going to help those aspiring entrepreneurs find their way, help them chart a course to eliminate the road rash and some of the potholes that are so easily stepped into when you're trying to go it alone. So I've got a lot of life experiences over my last 30 years in business. And I mean, all of those mistakes are lessons, and they don't all have to be learned, right? They don't. Sometimes if somebody could pull you aside and say, hey, look, I know what that looks like because I've been there and I've done it. And let me tell you how that story ends. I wish I would have had somebody to do that. I didn't. I had to skin my knees or literally move in really cautiously just to make sure that I didn't bet the farm in the wrong thing. So I'm extremely grateful for the life I have. I give back where I can, and I find one of the most difficult things to give back is your time, because we all get it. We all get 24, right? Mm-hmm. You can't buy more, you don't get less. So it's how do you use them wisely? So that's just kind of how I roll, and I'm still looking for other opportunities because that's what lights my fire. But what I really enjoy doing is the consulting and mentoring. That's my sweet spot. Love it.
That's right. Yeah, because I mean, I think that's where you get all your fulfillment from, right? The real value. Because like you said, you have all this money, you buy all the toys, the house, the cars, everything else, but you still felt like there was something missing, right? Like it's not, you can buy as many material things as you want, but the fulfillment comes from, like you said, like your legacy, how many people, you've impacted that's where the real value, right, starts to reside.
And just showing up in a better way, being a good guy. And, that's for me, being a good father, a good friend, a good former boss, a good mentor, a good consultant, good Christian. So that's what I look for. You talk about the blind spots, the missing spots. Now here I am. When they say money can't buy happiness, there's some truth in it. So I'm a single guy, so I'm still looking for the person who I can share my life with. I was married for a long time, but been divorced now for about 5 years. So I'm waiting for that chapter. I'm looking, and I'm cautiously looking, as you can imagine. The dating is it's a different world.
It's tricky. It's tricky. Yeah, exactly. Peter, man, congratulations on all your success, on all the great points that you shared with us here today. I really appreciate that. and wish you all the best in going forward and impacting lives, continuing to do those great things, and we're gonna see you around, man. So thanks for being on with us here.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. Happy to come back anytime. And you're in Miami as well, right?
That's right. That's right. So we're gonna have to go get a little cafecito.
Yeah, let's get a drink for sure.
They don't have them in Minnesota, right?
No, we don't.
All right, fantastic. And so all you on there, you can catch this one on gamechangerslive.co, also on the Game Changers YouTube channel. You can subscribe there to check out this one and other ones. Thanks a lot, Peter. Talk to you soon, my brother.
Enjoyed it. Take care.